Hi everyone, welcome to video 3 in AP Computer Science. So last time in video 2 we learned two new things: how to ask the user a question and then how to store their answer or store other calculations in variables. We asked the user the radius of the circle, we stored their answer in this variable called radius, we calculated the area and stored that in a variable called area, and then we showed the area to the user. So this lesson we're going to do another formula you might do in your programmable calculator, the quadratic equation. You may recall that. Actually I'll jump to that now. So what the quadratic equation is, if you recall, is if you have basically a polynomial, second degree polynomial, and you write it like this: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then the answers for x, and there's two of them, are minus b plus this thing, square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, or minus this. So there's often two answers for x. Sometimes there's one answer when this thing is 0. And sometimes there's no answers when this thing is negative. There's no real answers. So we'll have to account for those situations as well. So we're going to teach Java the quadratic formula, basically. And for this, you're going to learn three new things today. The first is how to declare and initialize a variable all in one line of code. Before we had two lines, so I'll show you how to do it in one line. The second is there's this class that comes with Java called the math class, and that has a lot of functions, including the square root function. But you can, there's a few on the AP test. I think there's 5 that you need to know. So we'll do the square root today, and then we're going to learn about conditional code, so code that only runs in certain conditions. Before, each line of code would run in order in our programs. Now we're going to use an if statement, and if we're in a certain situation, then you want code to run. And then there's related things called if, else if, and else, and I'll describe that in the code. So let's head over to the computer, and I'll show you how to do the quadratic formula. Okay? Okay. As you know, I like to start with a specification, basically what the program will look like when it's done. I'll just do it in Word like we did before. So why don't we write out to the screen, enter the coefficients of your quadratic equation, and then ask the user 3 questions, A, B, and C. And we'll put those answers in variables called A, B, C, let's say. And then we'll print a space or a free line, and then the solutions are, and then we'll print the two solutions. All right, simple enough. So let's go to BlueJ, and you can use the same project. It doesn't really matter in this case. So create a new class called the quadratic equation class, and double click, and this is where we'll put in our code. Now some of this I've already taught you, so I'm going to go real fast and just type it without slowing down to explain it in detail. So we're going to do a main method, public static void main string args left right. We're going to have to ask the user a question, so we're going to need to import a few questions. We'll need to import the scanner class, java.util.scanner. Okay, first thing we're going to do is say enter the coefficients of your quadratic equation. Okay, now we're going to say I'll just type them all while I'm thinking of it. Print B and C. Okay. So we need to create a scanner class, as you recall. Scanner, my scanner equals new scanner system.in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable called A, and then we're going to set A equal to myscanner.nextDouble. And this we covered last time. The one new thing I wanted to cover is you see we've declared a variable, and then we have initialized it. We have set it equal to something. You can do all this in one line. Actually, Java lets you combine the concepts, and the way you do that simply is you declare it. You put the variable type basically before the variable, and in one line you have declared the variable a, and you've set it equal to the value of the right side of the equal sign. Okay, so that was one thing I wanted to show you. So double B, my scanner dot next double, and then double C equals my scanner dot next double. Okay. All right, and then we're going to print out the solutions are, or whatever I said. And the way you can actually do a line is \n. I'll explain that more, but that creates a new line before it says the solutions are. Okay, so the solutions are, and now let's calculate them. So I'm going to create two new variables, answer1 and answer2. And then we'll show those two. So answer1 equals minus b plus b squared, let's do it like that, minus 4ac. Now this is this you want to take the square root of, so I'm going to show you how to do that. There's a math class with a capital M, math, dot, and then you put in the function name, and the function we want to use is called square root. And then you pass in what you want the square root of in between the parentheses to that function. Okay, so what happens is Java will do this first, and then it'll do this, square root, and it'll take that and add it to minus b. Okay, and then the final thing, this is all over 2a. So always enjoy parentheses. Makes things clear what's going to happen. So so we put the whole top in parentheses, the division sign, and then the whole bottom in parentheses. That's a safe way to do it. And then answer 2 goes here. I'm going to cut and paste because it's almost the same, except you have a minus. Okay, and now let's tell the user what we came up with. System.out.print line answer1 print answer2. Okay, so let's see if this compiles. I don't know if I made any mistakes. Find out. Yes, I did. Let me move this up so you can see it. It says a parenthesis is expected. So that closes that. I see an extra semicolon. I wonder if that's a compile. Okay, left, left. Oh, it should say 4 times a. Let's see. Okay, compile. Okay, sometimes the error messages, as you saw, are not extremely accurate. It's trying to figure out a line that it doesn't understand, so it may not do it right. But at any rate, compiles, and let us run it. And I'm going to run it with some coefficients I know the answer to, which you saw in the Word document. So that would be 1, 3, minus 4. Solutions are 1 and minus 4. All right, that's the right answer. Okay, so there's one thing I said I was going to teach you, which is that I haven't yet. It's the if clause. And the reason we need that is if you run it, I'll just give you an example. If you run it with 1, 2, and 3, you get this funny answer where it's trying to show answer 1 and answer 2, and it says NaN. NaN in Java stands for not a number. And what is happening there is in the equation, this is negative. There's no real square root of a negative number. So that becomes this special thing called not a number, and then the rest of the equation when it tries to deal with it, also becomes not a number, and that's why you show that to the user. So essentially, this is not solvable if that is less than 0. And showing NaN to a user is not really the best way to do it. So what we're going to do is do an if clause. Okay? And so far, like I said, every line of code runs in order so far from what I've taught you. And now we're going to start to vary that with an if clause, which is lines of code are going to only conditionally run. And what an if clause looks like is if, I'll just write it like this for a sec. So if some condition, which goes in between the parentheses, if that's true, then run this code between the brackets. So that's essentially what an if looks like. So let's start to fill it out. So we only want to show the answers and do this calculation if b times b minus 4 times a times c, so that whole thing, is greater or equal to 0. 0 has a square root, but negative numbers do not. So basically, in between the parentheses, you have to use what's called a conditional expression. Use greater than, or less than, or equals, or not equals, or those sorts of things. We'll cover them all in a future video. But in this case, we just use greater than or equals. So if that, what's called the discriminant, the thing between underneath the square root, is greater or equal to 0, then we're good. So what I'm going to do then is cut and paste these 2 lines of code and put them between the brackets. And I will go up here and do a little auto formatting. And basically what that says is these don't, if this is true, run these 2 lines of code. And if this is not true, don't run them. So the other thing we want to do is actually move this up. Okay, let me format again. Okay, so if this is true, it's going to run these 2 lines of code. It's going to show the answer to the user, and that's it. Otherwise, it's just going to end the program. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so if we say 1, 2, and 3, oh, that doesn't look so good. And if we say you can do it 1, 3, minus 4, that looks good. Okay, so let's adjust that slightly. The solutions are, let's move that to be conditional as well. Okay, paste please. Okay, auto format. Okay. Now I'm going to show you one other thing. If there's no solution, I think it's rude to not show anything to the user. So what you could do another if statement saying if this is less than 0. But there's this handy trick called else. What else does is you do 2 brackets as well. And if this is not true, then it runs the else. So it does one or the other. It either runs these lines of code or these lines of code in these brackets. So we'll just say there are no real answers. Okay, compile, close, right click, main, okay. 1, 2, 3. There are no real answers. That's good. And let's do our other test case. Uh, 1, 3, minus 4. That's good. Okay. So our program is working. There's one, I'm running out of time. One other nice thing you could do is if the answers are the same, if b squared minus 4ac is 0, for instance, you could show just the answer once. If you run your program, you'll see it'll say the same number twice. That would be nice, but we'll do that next time since I'm running out of time. Okay, let's go back to the board and summarize. Okay, great. So now we wrote our second programmable calculator program for the quadratic formula, which I know is incredibly useful depending on where you are in your math classes. So let's just review what we did in any new vocabulary. The first is I showed you how you can declare a variable and initialize it all in one line of code. So basically this creates a box, like we said, a box that's size double called pi. And so that's done first. And then it goes to the right side of the equal sign and evaluates that expression. In this case it's just a number, but it could be a formula or something like that. And it takes that and puts it in the box that it just created. So that's declaring and initializing a variable. The second thing is we learned about math functions. This math class has dozens and dozens of functions like square root that are very useful. So we learned math.square root, and then you have parentheses, and then whatever you put in parentheses, this whole line of code, basically, this whole expression will evaluate to the new number, the square root of what you put in the parentheses. And then next we learn the if statement. So if you want some code to only run in certain situations, then you use an if statement. And it looks like if, parens, brackets. In the parens you put a true-false expression like x is greater than 5 or something like that. And then in the brackets, just like any curly brackets, you put a bunch of code. And that code will only run if what's between the parentheses is true. And then we learn the if-else concept. I know we were going to learn one more, the else-if, but I ran out of time. In the if-else concept, same thing for the if, but if this does not end up being true, if this is false, then it'll run the code between this bracket. So it's basically one or the other. That's what if-else is. So that is often very, very useful. You're in either situation A or situation B, so run either the code here or run the code there. So that's it. Hope that was educational, and you can find the code if you're on YouTube. There's a little link in the description where you can find the code if you have any syntax errors or can't figure something out. Okay, thanks a lot, and talk to you soon.